Welcome to our next digital conversation around management and management skills in regards to communication. This particular piece deals with some of the obstacles we're going to face in our organizations today. And I find these pretty interesting because many of these obstacles were not present when I was actively engaged in management. So I feel your pain. So let's work through some of these. I want to talk a bit about the anxiety of communicating and why that gets in the way of our ability to perform. Some of the assumptions that we have that get in the way of being an effective communicator. The third is very charged topic, and it's the issue of sexual harassment in the workplace and why we need to be cautious in how we communicate. And then the last piece is we'll talk a bit about technology and how that can help or get in the way of our ability to communicate. Communicator anxiety has always been there, particularly if you're a shy, introverted person. The idea of stepping out and communicating in any form, either putting it in writing or putting it forward in a meeting through a conversation or even a formal presentation. So you have a situation where you're now having to go into a meeting and brief your bosses, and you get clutchy, you get sweaty palms, your body's operating on full alert. Take that as a positive, not a negative. That's your body sending you energy and it's getting you excited, and that's helping giving you that little bit of adrenaline that's going to help you project the passion and the excitement that you feel for the topic. So don't sense that that's all bad. Just realize that we have to be able to channel it. So some ways that you can manage this anxiety when you're going in to present, prepare and practice. The other piece that I suggest to folks is when you're going in to present to senior management, they may be more experienced than you, but you are the content expert. You're coming to them to help them do a better job. And the more that you can prepare, that you're well researched and that you've rehearsed is going to help it go better. You need to warm up your voice and your body. I mean, I've seen some people literally outside in the hallway doing jumping jacks or squats before they're going in the meeting so they get their heart rate up. You can see them doing scales with their voice. Those of us that live in Sacramento, we have the curse of allergies. You probably hear that in a number of these videos. So we have to deal with allergies that get in the way of our voice performing the way we want. Deep breathing. It's a fascinating concept. I've been very interested in breathing and how that helps us deal with anxiety and to do a better job and to deal with stress. And we're even encouraging people to take stress management classes which help you get more into the breathing and in contact with your body so that you can amp down the negative parts of the anxiety and amp up the good parts. You want to have an introduction that the scariest part of any presentation is about the first 30 seconds. So you're going in and you know that within those 30 seconds you have to connect to your audience and you want to do it well. So if you practice almost to the point that you've written out your introduction so that you can get people on your side right away, that's very helpful. The use of visual aids. I do a fair amount of presentations and I create slide decks that are really more for me than for the audience. Those are my mental cues as to what it is that I need to be talking about, and that relieves the stress a great deal. There's also the biological side of the anxiety that's going in when you're going to present. Your personality. That, again, if you're very introverted, very shy, that's in your genetic structure. You also may have a personal history. We talked a bit before that in the first grade you stood up to read in front of class and you messed it up, and the drama of that first grade experience is a tape that you keep running in your mind over and over and over again when it comes time to engage in a presentation. So what you want to do is create a very positive image of what it is that's going to be taking place. You want to visualize yourself as a winner, like Michael Phelps is notorious for his creating positive images before he even goes in the water for a race. He sees every stroke, he sees every turn, and he sees himself winning the race. So again, put another tape in, take that bad first grade tape out, plug in that new positive image, and make it happen. When we're working with audiences, one of our anxieties is that we're going to be not clearly understood. So we want to, particularly in the age of communication through technology, which is very fast, we want to make sure that the people we're communicating with get the overall picture, that they get the end state. When I work with leaders, I suggest that they bring their teams together in person at the start so that they can clearly articulate and paint the pictures of what it is that they want to accomplish for the whole group. As we've talked about before, you want to use a minimum of words. You can't talk people into clarity of what it is that you want done. So be very clear, crisp, and precise in your messaging. You want to, when you're talking to other people, use language that is appropriate for them. This isn't some kind of ego trip that you're going on. Look how smart I am. I be a college graduate and they taught me all these big words. That's not the purpose. You want to repeat your message several times. It gets to the point that you said something so often that you think if you're going to say it again to a group, you're going to throw up. That means you're just about to the point to where they're getting the message. You want to check in with the group that you're communicating with to make sure that they're hearing what it is that you're sending. And then you want to use delivery systems that are somewhat different and engaging. One of the tips that we suggest when you're going into presentations, in my graduate courses, students do presentations and then the class evaluates them on the effectiveness of their presentation. And we said one good way to get high scores is to engage the audience. You can give them quizzes, you can play games, you can do any number of things, and you can reward them for their engagement in the process, and that's going to elevate your scores. So remember, it's not about you just blasting messages out, it's you taking the time to engage. We also have an issue where we tend to jump to conclusion using faulty assumptions. There's the inference observation confusion that I saw this brief thing occur and then you assume that that is the whole picture. And again, when you're getting visual imaging coming through on emails, you're watching video clips, oftentimes you'll just watch one part of it. One of the famous studies that was done on people that have observation confusion, they have a team that's playing basketball and they're passing the ball back and forth on the court, and the person that sets up the group says, how many times does the ball pass between players? And they run this clip for about 30 seconds. Well, while they're passing the ball back and forth, a guy in a gorilla suit walks through the middle of the teams that are engaged in this activity. And then the facilitator says, how many times did the ball pass? And then they'll ask, was there anything else that was unique that was taking place? And a very small percentage of the audience sees the gorilla. So that is our inference observation confusion. We can also bypass that. Our brain works very, very quickly, and as you're reading something or as someone is speaking, you can assume that the word that they're using is the word with a meaning that you've attached to it. And that gets super critical when we're dealing with international situations. So we tend to take a look at a word, we assume that it's a word that means what it means to us, while the person may have a totally different meaning attached to it. In our wrap-up video, we're going to be talking about the challenges of intercultural communication and global operations, and this is one of the issues that you have to deal with. The next issue is a very significant issue. The whole concept of sexual harassment in the workplace. I've seen over my career several individuals that have had their careers end just by being charged with sexual harassment. They were later found innocent, that they didn't engage in anything inappropriate, but just the charge was enough to derail their careers. So take this stuff very seriously. There's two types of sexual harassment, quid pro quo, say that really fast, quid pro quo. That's a situation where if you will do this, I will do this for you. Very straightforward. Hostile work environment sexual harassment is somewhat dicier. And that's where if somebody perceives an action in the workplace or an image in the workplace that is inappropriate, they can claim that there's now been a hostile workplace created and sexual harassment is taking place. And that gets very, very difficult to manage. So again, be very cautious in any cartoons you bring to work, any language that you use at work, any jokes that you're telling at work, so that you're not being charged with creating a hostile environment. And then there's harassment through email. You want to be very cautious of anything that you say or anything that you write about someone else, and remove any content that may be sexual in nature to protect yourself from these charges. So take personal responsibility for all that you do. Be very aware of the environment that you're in, and when in doubt, be ultra conservative. Communication technology is something that is both a winner and a loser. If it's used right, it can be very effective. It can help us do a much better job. We were chatting with the folks here about the issue of technology causing people to be way overstressed because they're not disconnecting from work. They literally will wake up 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning and then they'll start texting somebody. Well, the person that receives that text says, oh my God, the boss is working at 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. I need to be available at 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning so I can respond. So the cycle of stress just starts to accelerate. So again, technology is a real positive, but it has to be effectively managed. To start with, we've gone through the different channels of communication, and face-to-face communication is the most powerful form of human communication. So when you have critical messages, you want to try, if at all possible, to look the people in the eye and deliver that message that way. Some tips on email. I'm sure you've been aware of many of the court cases that have taken place. Emails are there forever. There's a company that was engaged in an exchange of communication between their executives. And the company was charged, or a lawsuit was filed against them for a product or some activity that was damaging. Well, going through the course of litigation and discovery, it was becoming very clear that the company did nothing wrong, that the product was appropriate or the service was appropriate. However, the conversations between the executives via email were so damaging that the company settled the lawsuit for approximately $40 million. So here's a situation where the company legally did nothing wrong. Either the product or service was okay, but the email exchanges between executives presented an image that was detrimental to the organization's image in the marketplace. So they're there and they last a very long time, so plug in brain before fingers on the keyboard. Also, when you're going to work for a company and you're using their servers, they own those emails. So anything that you write using the company's servers, they have ownership too, and they can use for disciplinary action against you, or they can use in other ways that you may not find appropriate. So again, plug in brain, then send your email communications. Virtual meetings are starting to become more and more prevalent. When I work with organizations that are starting to use more web meetings, The recommendation is if this is a critical project, bring your team together face-to-face first, get that content going, and then shift into the use of technology. The positives of virtual meeting are very, very straightforward, that there tends to be less emotion and conflict. People, when they're on camera, filter a lot of that out. People tend to be more organized if they're doing a web meeting because they're moving slides and they're moving other things, and it moves in a very straightforward manner. And decision making tends to be more equal. People tend to be more willing to engage when it's not face-to-face. And participation also seems to be more equal, that people are more willing, because of the anonymity or the removal of the pressure of face-to-face communication, to engage more. The negative side is there's also less emotional satisfaction that's gained from those kind of meetings. There's something about the group hug at the end of a face-to-face meeting that's very uplifting to people, and they don't get quite that same hit when it's a web meeting. And it's also hard to read the subtle body language and other signals that are being sent when you're communicating via the web or on a video meeting. But again, it's a very positive tool. Just manage it in a way that's going to be very helpful to you. The bottom line is, in all forms of communication, we want to have a very clear message that we're trying to send. You want to engage brain before opening mouth or putting fingers on the keyboard. You want to use the technologies that work for you. All the way back at the beginning of the class, we talked about proper channel selection. So pick the channel that you're trying to use to transmit the message that's appropriate. And wherever possible, use face-to-face communication. One last tip is when you're communicating with someone else. So let's say that you're the leader of a team and you're communicating to your team members to get work product in by a certain date. It's your responsibility to make sure that the person received the message. Just sending an email doesn't close the communication loop. So if you send out an email, I would suggest that please respond by this date to make sure that you receive this. That way you can close out the loop and make sure everybody's on board. All right? Take these tips and go forth and do good.